Have you ever thought about giving up? Not because you want to, but because you simply can't take it anymore. Have you ever felt exhausted on the inside, even when everything seems under control on the outside? That's how it is. Sometimes what you lack isn't strength, but breath. Not courage, but a bit of silence. And no one talks about it. We live in an era where pausing is seen as weakness, where breathing calmly feels like a luxury, where exhaustion is mistaken for failure. But what if true power lies in the opposite? What if starting over with wisdom is more valuable than running aimlessly? What if silence is your greatest act of strength? In this video, you'll dive into a deep reflection inspired by modern Stoicism and masters like Marcus Aurelius. We'll talk about pauses that heal, how to deal with mental exhaustion, and how to rebuild your inner emotional strength without haste, without guilt, without pressure. You'll discover that the world isn't against you. It's just calling you to return to yourself, and that even the strongest also need to pause. Comment below. Today, I choose to pause, not give up. And subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of self-discovery and emotional balance. There are days when everything feels like a wall. No matter how much you push, nothing moves. Your body feels heavy, your mind complains, and the will to keep going vanishes like a breath. And then comes that old feeling. Maybe the universe is against me. But is it really? Stoic philosophy teaches us that the world doesn't attack us. It's we who, when fragile on the inside, start interpreting every breeze as a storm. When everything feels hard, the problem isn't always the path. Sometimes it's just the mental exhaustion of someone carrying the world without having rested their own soul. Maybe you're not failing. You're just exhausted. And there's a profound difference between these two states. Failure paralyzes. Exhaustion simply asks for a pause. That's where emotional intelligence comes in. Knowing when to stop, breathe, rest your mind without falling into the trap of thinking it's giving up. The Stoic pause is strategic. It's the step back before the leap. It's the silence that heals. Silent reconstruction always begins with the courage to admit, I'm tired. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. So when your mind screams to vanish, disappear, or give up, listen calmly. Maybe it's just asking for rest. Don't give up on yourself. Just pause for a moment. Reconnect with your essence. Remember, even the strong need to pause. Inner serenity doesn't come from haste, but from pausing. From that moment when you close your eyes, feel your heartbeat, and realize there's still life pulsing, even if everything seems still. Because sometimes, what feels like the end is just the moment before rebirth. Have you noticed how we feel ashamed to pause? As if admitting you're tired were a sin. As if pausing the journey meant admitting weakness. But modern Stoicism reminds us, exhaustion isn't the end, it's just a reminder. A silent signal that your body, your mind, perhaps even your soul, need space. It's in that moment that the chance to start over with wisdom arises. Because running aimlessly is more dangerous than stopping to breathe. It's in that pause that you begin to see clearly what seemed impossible in the chaos. Inner emotional strength doesn't shout. It whispers. It hides in small gestures. In the silence of those who hold firm, in the calm of those who breathe deeply, even when everything seems to crumble. You're exhausted, not weak. And it's precisely by recognizing this exhaustion that your resilience flourishes. Stoic philosophy doesn't expect you to be invincible. It just shows you that, even in exhaustion, there's dignity. And sometimes, pausing is the bravest act you can do for yourself. Not as giving up, but as realignment. When everything feels hard, when your mind is overwhelmed and emotions cloud your senses, the pause becomes medicine. And not just any pause, a stoic pause, conscious, respectful of your own limits. It's not about escaping the world, but pausing enough to hear your inner self. Because calm is your secret strength. It's what rebuilds you in the dark, preparing you to return clearer, more centered, more whole. And it's in that serenity that the true strength lies, the strength of someone who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, only to keep going at their own pace. There's something almost no one teaches. Starting over isn't going back to the beginning, it's continuing with more awareness. And for that, you need to pause. Not the pause that comes from extreme exhaustion, but the one born from wisdom. Stoic philosophy calls this an act of self-mastery. The pause isn't a waste of time, it's an economy of where. It's when you stop acting on impulse and start acting with intention. And let's be honest, sometimes the best action isn't to do more, but to do less with more meaning. Have you ever felt guilty for taking a day for yourself? As if the world would collapse if you stopped producing for a few hours? That guilt is a symptom of an overloaded mind, programmed to confuse productivity with personal worth. But Stoicism in real life is practical. It says it's better to pause than to break, and that starting over with wisdom is one of the strongest acts of emotional discipline. It's not cowardice, it's strategy. Those who pause consciously restart with direction. Think about it. You can keep pushing down a path just because you started, or you can pause, breathe, listen to the silence, reorganize your thoughts, and move forward with lightness. Starting over is an act of courage. It's recognizing that you deserve a life with purpose, not just a life full of tasks. And if that requires pausing for a while, that's okay. The pause doesn't set you back, it aligns you. And those who understand its value discover the invisible power of taking a step back to gain momentum with more strength. There are moments when all you need is silence. But the world insists on noise. Noise from goals, expectations, demands. And you, exhausted, keep trying to respond to it all, as if you owe explanations for being tired. But modern Stoicism reminds you that there's wisdom in waiting. Not every cycle is resolved with haste. There's a time for movement, and a sacred time for retreat. And it's in that retreat that the soul reorganizes. When everything feels too much, allow yourself to quiet, not the world, but the agitation within you. Stoic philosophy never romanticized pain, but it always honored the time for growth. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, spoke about accepting life's rhythm without resistance. And maybe that's what's missing. Stop fighting the tide and learn to float. Let time carry you, not as someone who gives up, but as someone who trusts. Because real growth doesn't need to announce anything. It happens slowly, while you care for your emotions in silence, while you rest, while you learn to breathe again. No one sees the reconstruction while it's happening. It's in the darkness of the pause that roots deepen. It's in silence that inner emotional strength takes shape. When life asks for silence, it's not punishment. It's an invitation, a call to listen to what you've been ignoring. And trust me, there's more answers in silence than in 1,000 questions screaming in your head. You just need to trust. You just need to wait. Because silence is also strength. And sometimes, it's the only path to rediscover yourself. Sometimes everything feels confusing, tangled thoughts, anxiety pounding in your chest, and that strange sensation that you've lost yourself. But not having direction doesn't always mean you're lost. The truth is, mental exhaustion is like fog. It covers the horizon, distorts shapes, but doesn't change the path. It just hides it. Modern Stoicism teaches that in those moments, you don't need to run or escape. You need to pause and breathe. The direction is still there. You just can't see it right now. An overloaded mind can't think clearly. It's like trying to see the bottom of a turbulent lake. Only when the water calms does the truth appear. So, pause. Close your eyes. Listen to your breathing. Feel the weight of your body. That's reconnecting with your essence. It's reclaiming the present. and that presence brings back clarity. Stoic philosophy doesn't offer shortcuts. It teaches you to endure the process with serenity. And in that process, resting the mind isn't a luxury. It's a vital necessity. The problem is that we think we need to understand ourselves to keep going. But most of the time, we just need one thing: time. Time to breathe, to reorganize, to return, and to start over with wisdom. You're not lost. You're just tired. And that exhaustion doesn't define who you are. It just reveals that you've gone too far without listening to yourself. So pause, breathe, respect your time. The Stoic pause is that sacred interval between confusion and clarity. And maybe, just maybe, it's what you need to find yourself again. The line between giving up and pausing may seem thin, but it's profound. Those who give up abandon themselves. Those who pause care for themselves. And that's one of the most powerful lessons of Stoic philosophy. Not everything that stops dies. Sometimes pausing is the most alive gesture someone can make, because it requires awareness. It requires humility. It requires courage to admit that your body is asking for a break, your mind is saturated, your soul is silent. And when all this happens at once, it's not about weakness. It's about emotional wisdom. Many people break because they never learned to pause, because they were taught to go to the end, even if that end was an abyss. But Stoicism for beginners teaches this early on. Pausing is a practice of virtue. It's not procrastination, not weakness, not laziness. It's pure emotional intelligence. It's choosing to wait for the right moment instead of acting in the storm. The Stoic pause is the invisible preparation for the next step. And only those who've collapsed understand how much lighter it would have been if they'd allowed themselves to rest. The world preaches speed, but wisdom preaches rhythm. And the rhythm of a healthy soul includes moments of silence, retreat, and conscious pausing. When everything is screaming for you to give up, listen closely. Maybe it's not time to end, just to pause, to allow yourself time, to start over with more clarity, because don't give up on yourself. You just need to pause. You just need to breathe. And when you do, you'll see that a lot starts to reorganize inside, without effort, just with presence. Your body speaks, your mind warns, your soul screams. But you, pressured by routine, self-demand, and the fear of seeming weak, pretend not to hear. You keep pushing through life on autopilot, believing you're handling it, until one day you break, and you don't understand why. But the truth is, no one collapses suddenly. We just ignore the signs until we can't anymore. And one of those signs, the most subtle and most ignored, is the exhaustion that doesn't go away with sleep, the kind you carry even after resting. That's the silent cry of your soul asking for a pause. Stoic philosophy teaches us that self-care begins with listening. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, said, "The soul becomes what it feeds on. And if you feed it stress, pressure, noise, and urgency, what do you expect to reap? Your soul doesn't want to give up. It just wants to pause a little, not to escape life, but to live it with presence. When your mind is overwhelmed, everything loses meaning. That's when silence becomes a necessity, not an option." The Stoic pause, in this case, is like medicine. The sooner, the better. Don't wait for collapse to understand the value of rest. Don't wait for despair to remember that pausing is also progress. Your soul is begging for reconnection, for conscious breathing, for a moment without demands. And maybe it's in that moment that you'll remember who you are, because there's an invisible strength that only activates when you respect your limits. A strength that doesn't need noise to exist. It lives in rest. It lives in silence. It lives in the moment you finally accept that pausing isn't failing, it's flourishing within. We were taught to admire those who never fall, who seem unbeatable, constant, unshakable. But true strength isn't in never falling. It's in rising when no one believes you will. It's in silencing pride and saying, I need a moment. It's in starting over from within with humility. Modern Stoicism teaches us not to despair in falls. They're part of the cycle. Life isn't a straight line. It's made of curves, pauses, and restarts. And those who understand this start to see a stumble not as an end, but as a new beginning. Silent reconstruction is an art. It doesn't require an audience. It requires patience. It's when you understand that the pause is a chance, not a punishment. And that emotional clarity is born precisely when you allow yourself to pause and listen. Stoic self-compassion is this: treating yourself with the same calm you'd offer to someone you deeply love, without judgment, without demands, just presence, just listening, just the simple act of breathing deeply and saying to yourself, I'm here, and that's enough for today. The power of starting over lies in not needing to prove anything, in not making noise, in not announcing a return, just returning more whole. Inner emotional strength doesn't come from resisting all the time, but from knowing how to respect your limits without losing your essence. Sometimes, the most beautiful victory is the one no one sees, the day you almost gave up, but chose to pause instead. And in that silence, something in you rebuilt itself, without haste, without witnesses, but with a strength that no fall can ever erase. There are times when the biggest mistake isn't pausing, it's keep running, because your mind is begging for a break, your body is exhausted, your soul is suffocated, and yet, you accelerate. You run as if escaping something that, deep down, just needs to be faced. But Stoicism in real life isn't about speed, it's about rhythm. And rhythm requires listening. Not every urgency is real. Not every exhaustion is solved with more effort. Sometimes the only way out is to pause, to slow down, to allow yourself to feel. Have you noticed how the world applauds those who never stop? As if resting were weakness and overload a trophy? Stoic philosophy breaks this myth with wisdom. Pausing is part of emotional discipline. It's recognizing that an overwhelmed mind doesn't decide well, doesn't think clearly, doesn't live with purpose. And when everything in you is asking for a pause, maybe the worst thing you can do is ignore that call. Because no one collapses all at once. The collapse is always the sum of ignored silences. Don't run when your body wants to breathe. Don't fake focus when your mind is in ruins. Don't force presence when your soul has been gone for a while. The power of the Stoic pause lies in recognizing the limit before the abyss. It's in respecting yourself enough to say, not now. It's in understanding that starting over with wisdom requires pausing with humility. Because in the end, it's not the one who runs the most that goes the farthest. It's the one who knows when to pause that has the breath to keep going with purpose. There's a dangerous illusion in the air, that everything needs to happen now. That you have to react fast, solve fast, rush back to the scene. But that's not how the soul works. Modern Stoicism invites us to respect the timing of things, and especially our own. Starting over without haste isn't negligence. It's wisdom. It's knowing that what's rebuilt slowly tends to last longer, that what flourishes in silence tends to be more authentic. You don't need to rush to prove anything. The world won't end if you take a little longer to return. Stoic philosophy speaks of presence, and being present with yourself is the first step to any real change. Starting over with wisdom is looking at your own exhaustion with compassion. It's understanding that every pause was a seed, that every silence was fertile time, and that now, little by little, with inner serenity, you can return, not as someone who races against time, but as someone who walks with it. The Stoic pause is strategic. It reorganizes, strengthens, calms. And in that calm lies the clarity you didn't have before. If someone tells you you're taking too long, smile lightly. Their haste isn't your problem. Your soul doesn't follow anyone's clock. The pause you took was an act of courage. The way you return will be an act of awareness. Because you respected your limits. because you didn't lose your essence, and now, even if everything isn't perfect yet, you're ready to return, with more calm, more focus, more purpose. And when you do, you'll realize the world waited for you, and more than that, you were waiting for yourself too. Now that you've made it this far, breathe. Yes, really breathe. Feel the air coming in. Let your mind come down from the height of anxiety and touch the ground of presence. You're not alone. And more importantly, you haven't failed yet. Maybe you're just too tired to see how far you've already come. And that's okay. Stoic philosophy doesn't ask you to be indestructible. It just reminds you of something the world forgot. Resting is also continuing. You have the right to pause. You have the right to start over without haste. So I ask you, what in your life needs a pause, not an end? What can you do today with more calm, more presence, and more truth? Write it in the comments. Your answer might be the start of your reconstruction. And if this video touched you in some way, share it with someone who's also tired, but hasn't given up yet. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep learning with Stoic wisdom.